Hi, everyone. Happy Thursday. Welcome to Soul Creativity. Naven here. I'm super excited for today's episode and the guest, Wade F. Wilson. I've been looking forward to talking with Wade, and I know that you're going to really enjoy this episode. Um, Wade is a writer, an actor, and an all around creative. So, we're going to be talking about creativity, my favorite subject. Before we get started, I want to let you know I do have Wade's books here. If you can see them, this is one of them. If Oprah could hear my words. And then the children's book, which actually I enjoy reading, Yuka and the Universe. And links to those books are under the video. So if you I would encourage you to link on and get a copy because they're really cool books and you will definitely enjoy them. So, welcome, Wade. Thanks for being on the show. So happy we could get together. And I know we have a lot of interesting things to talk about.
Yes, thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm sorry for last time we were supposed to get together, but we made it happen this time. So
Yeah, that's the important thing that we were able to reschedule. And hopefully, no weather conditions will interrupt us or anything for
well, it's,
today's show.
it's sunny down here in California, so I'm
Good.
good.
I want to let everyone know that the live chat is on, so comments or questions, certainly feel free to put them in there and we will get to them. And if you happen to be watching this video later, after it's posted on YouTube, you're still welcome to comment or ask a question, and I will make sure that Wade sees that so that he can respond. So feel free to do that later. And also a reminder, please like, subscribe, and share the video.
All
So
that good.
Wade, yeah, all the important housekeeping things. I'm, in addition to your books, I want to mention that one of the acting jobs that you have done that maybe folks will be familiar with is you were in seasons 3 and 4 of the Netflix series Dear White People as the character Michael Reynolds.
Yes.
And that was a really good series. And season 4, I just loved because it was a musical.
Right.
I thought that was really clever, and it's a really well written and well acted series. So I encourage everyone to watch it if you haven't yet. And I was going to ask you, Wade, if there's anything else that we should be aware of, because I'm sure there are other things that you've done that I haven't seen. So,
Yeah, quite a few things. I would check out if you're a video game person out there. My first project with Spike Lee was a game called NBA 2K16. Um, there's a film on Amazon right now called Chirac, which was also directed by Spike Lee, and I had a chance to have a feature role in that. I played a character named Oedipus. Um, there's another project that I was in called Gina's Journey that's also available on Amazon Prime. And it's about a biracial woman who gets in touch with her roots with a gentleman named William Grimes. It's a true story. Biracial African American slave who did all of these incredible things, and she discovered all that. So it's about her getting in tune with those roots. So you can check that out. And as of right now, I'm on the audition grind. So, I've booked a direct TV commercial. I just did one of those. So you might see me on your TV soon. And I'm working on some more books and a sequel to Yuka and the Universe as well.
so are you, when you're talking about working on books and you said a sequel to Yuka and the Universe, are you focusing on children's books right now, or are you doing both?
Both.
Adult?
hmm Yeah. The poetry book that I'm doing right now is called Black Thoughts in a Black Box by a Black Man.
Oh, that's a cool title.
Mhm.
And
So
how far are you along?
I'm still developing the poetry for it. But what's interesting about this book, which is going to be unique, is that I'm going to let the readers in on where the poetries are inspired from.
Mhm.
So instead of readers looking at the poems and kind of guessing at what I could mean or deriving their own interpretation, uh, I'm going to let them know from me to them, exactly where it's coming from and what it means to me personally. So they'll be able to have that duality.
That's cool. That will be very interesting. Do you expect it to be, is it like the size? Because if Oprah could hear my words, it's pretty thick.
Oh yeah, no, not that big, not that big at all. This one, I'm thinking is going to sit somewhere around 100, maybe a little over 100 pages.
Okay.
Yeah, so a lot smaller, only 100 pages because again, there's that explanation for some of the works. But
Yeah.
if Oprah could hear my words, it is as big as it is, essentially because it's a compilation of all the works that I've been doing since I was a kid. Up until so I started my first poems that are actually in this book. I started writing when I was about 10 or 11. So I inserted poems from that time all the way up to what I put this out when I was like 32, 33. So that's why it's a journey through life. It really is a journey through a large portion of my life and my experiences.
Right. It's, yeah. I think I worded it as a poetic experiential, um, exploration, because it's your observations and experiences,
Yeah, yeah,
really put in there, and it's divided into categories. So I found that kind of interesting because I could go back and forth if I felt like reading in a particular area,
yeah.
then I would go to that section.
Focus on that one.
Hmm.
Yeah,
So
and
you were
that's
talking about writing as a young, starting very young. And I think a lot of creatives do. We dabble in different things. Maybe we don't realize that they're going to come back to us if we don't stay with them, but the things that we do as children sometimes, connect us to our passion, and we might get away from them for a while, but come back. So I'm wondering about your inspiration for all the creativity, the acting, the writing, and just exploring creativity in general.
oh yeah. As cliche as it may sound, it's just the experience of life, and not even just my own experiences, but even having vicarious experiences through friends and family. I love so much talking to people and just listening to their stories and what they're going through. And sometimes, if my friends will let me, I love trying to problem solve,
Mhm.
or just think intellectually about their experience and what they're going through, just for the sole reason of, yes, to help them find some kind of answer or catharsis, but also for my own learning experience, taking from um, what they're going through, whether it's something that I'm familiar with or not, and just deriving some kind of personal answer for myself, and then writing about it or bringing it into a character. Um, but really, that's where it is. All my experience is just from living, and it
Mhm.
gives and it gives and it gives.
Mhm. Yeah, that's for sure. Did you, were your parents like acting or,
Um,
writing?
my
I mean, did you
parents
have any
My parents
inspiration
were
then?
creatives, yeah.
Mhm.
My mom is a beautiful artist. Both of them are writers.
Mhm.
My mom, we published, this is her book. I don't know if
Oh,
you can see it.
cool. What's the title?
It's
Wait.
called Weeping Willow, Why Are You Weeping? And so
Okay.
this book, she came to me during COVID and she said, I have this idea. I had just published A Journey Through Life. And she said, "Can you help me?" And I was like, "Yeah,
Mhm.
mom." Like, "Well, what is it?" And this book is a compilation of her life experiences. It's short stories about her experiences in life. Um, I was like, "Yeah, mom, let's do it." So we got this out, um, and reading it. Oh, and my dad, because I said they're both writers. This is his book as well. Tales from the Mind Park.
Okay.
Both of these are available on Amazon. He's really big into science fiction, so these are short stories, science fiction
Science
tales.
fiction.
So as you see, I do come from a line of creatives. My uncle, he is Ted Lange. Um, he
Okay.
played he played the bartender in The Love Boat. You may
Yes.
remember
Yeah.
him. That's my uncle.
Okay. And
So
so you had the acting bug
yeah,
too.
and I
Yeah.
looked up to him so much as I was growing up. And his brother Michael Lange was also he was a theatrical performer.
Okay.
And I remember I had a chance to see him do Malcolm X, and oh my gosh,
Wow.
so young and seeing that and just being blown away. Um, my dad's father is Stan Wilson. He was a famous guitar player all throughout the Bay Area.
Oh,
Uh,
real. Wow.
yeah, Stan Wilson. So his music is online as well, and I've had a wealth of creatives in my family line um,
Yeah.
that have motivated me to want to pursue a life of creativity.
And it's not just one art. It kind of takes in all
Yeah,
the arts.
yeah. Everyone has been involved in something. Uh,
Hmm.
so I,
Yeah, so I can see how you would naturally gravitate towards and also that multi creative part of yourself.
yeah,
You know, because you've been exposed to so many creative
yeah.
avenues through your
And
family.
each one having a varying degree of success in it as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's unusual as well because you know it's not that's not easy to not
No,
necessarily easy to accomplish.
not at all. Not at all. But it's
Yeah,
one of those, as a kid, you see that and it's like, well, if they can find some modicum of success, then I can too. It is possible.
and it's also plants that idea in your head, the creativity in your head. Like I said, even if you don't do it as a child, you know it's there. I
But
think it
yeah,
kind of stays with you. Yeah, and you're going to probably come back to it at some point. You and I were talking before, and now that you know, I know there's so much creativity in your family, and you probably even picked up on this as a child. That self-expression, you know, bringing out what's inside of you through art, you know, whether it's music or acting or writing. And I'm wondering your thoughts about that and how important do you think it is to our own like emotional health and our overall well-being, and then also for what we're contributing, you know, to the world.
mm, I think um, I think it's very important. I think it. I think art, it boils down to a very fundamental root within humanity. This is of course just a hypothesis, but I wouldn't be surprised if at some point in our ancestral line, if art was um, used as a primary way of communicating complex ideas to one another.
Mhm.
Even during a time before language became solidified in the way that it has been. Um,
Mhm.
and I say that because even within how established we are now as a society, we still use art in that way
Mhm.
to communicate these abstract ideas where language just fails. My example would be certain scripts, right? You could write out all this beautiful language, but just reading it as it is on the page pales in comparison when seeing an actor add certain emotional complexities to it that just it for what it is doesn't play, right? It
Mhm.
takes that human element to really bring that next layer of the dialogue out. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I see.
Right.
Um, and I think that is in music, right? You hear a piece of music and there's just certain complexities there that touch us and speak to us in a way that nothing else can. You couldn't put that into words. Same thing with art. You see
Mhm.
a piece of art and you can't explain it, but it touches you deeply. Um,
Yeah.
So I think it's fundamental, and I don't think it's something that we can never not do.
I also was thinking as you were talking, art can be used for communication when your voice is taken away from you.
Hmm.
You know, if you're denied communicating for some reason, um, I'm trying, and I don't remember the basis of it. I don't know if you ever read Terry Tempest Williams' book, When Women Were Birds.
Oh no, I haven't.
And it's been a while since I read it, and I loved it. And I think, you know, that was where the title came from. Women weren't allowed to communicate or couldn't say what they wanted to say, and so they learned to communicate by, I don't know if it was images of birds or they used the birds like as an alphabet or something.
Yeah.
I'm really messing that up, but it was really profound at the time when I read it. The book itself is very, very moving and very good, but I've always loved that title, and it made me think of that. You know, if you can't, if you're denied a way to communicate, or as you said, if the words just aren't sufficient enough, you know,
You
the art can handle that.
you speaking of that made me think of Maya Angelou's "When a Caged Bird Sings."
Yes, another beautiful example of that, and I'm sure there, you know, are plenty others out there. That just happened to be, you know, something that came into my mind. When we're talking about that self-expression, I think it can be difficult for us. You know, we have to get out of that mindset of who's, you know, the end product and how am I going to sell this or who's going to see it. I mean, you might write with an audience in mind, but you can't focus just on, you know, is a publisher going to pick it up, or am I going to have a gallery showing, or am I going to get a big role? You know, I'm wondering how you, as a creative, get past, or do you get past that?
Um, I think that is a constant battle uh, within being a creative, because the world in which that we live in, as far as Western society, is predicated on success. It's predicated on um, work, 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 and achieve all that you can achieve. Um, and so when we grow up in that, when we're raised in that, it's very easy for us to associate anything that we do, even our joys in life, with, oh, I gotta be the top, I gotta be number one, I have to be the king of the castle, so to speak. Um, so we do it. Speaking for myself, I do it. I find myself living in that, and
Mhm.
then I go through these highs and lows. The lows are pretty much me realizing that, well, speaking from experience, after the Spike Lee venture, I remember leaving that, and my head was just expanded, exponentially. And I was thinking all this was going to happen for me, and that this was the moment. I'm sure so many actors have been in that. And things did happen, but it wasn't to the level in which I wanted it to happen.
Mhm.
And then I found myself falling into a moment of depression, because even though I was doing things, even though I was still working, I wasn't satisfied, and I didn't understand why I wasn't satisfied. I couldn't understand why I wasn't happy. I had money. I was still doing commercials. I was still getting co-star roles. I was still working, um, but I did not feel fulfilled. And I then had to. I apologize for that. I then had to sit back and look into myself and ask why. And I realized it was because, oh, I wanted fame, and I wanted millions of dollars, and I wanted accolades, and I wanted praise more so than I wanted to do just what I love to do and was doing. I was so caught up in the end goal that I couldn't recognize where I was in the moment, which was I was doing what I set out to do. I was making money consistently doing what I loved. My dream was realized, but I couldn't realize it because I was so stuck in this um, archaic view of what success is, you know? So I had to break myself of that. And then I had to root myself back into the love of the art itself. And as I was telling a friend today, I think the root goal of all artists is one, to create, to express, to share that vision with others. The second goal is, how can I make a comfortable living? And again, comfortable is it's different for everyone, right? So it doesn't have to mean millions of dollars. It could just mean it's just your side hustle or day to day, but you're making income from your art. And then the third thing, which is miscellaneous, I think, is the ultimate success, right? If that comes, if you round about to that home base, great. But if not, you're still successful. You're still doing what we all set out to do, which is to give and then have that give back. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
That discussion right there leads me into art within a capitalistic society,
yeah,
and how do we, because I think that's part of, that in the capitalistic mindset, I guess I would call it, because everything basically is done for money.
yeah.
And that's the whole paradigm. So I'm wondering, how do you think that affects art? And as artists or creatives, how might we maneuver through that?
We talked about this once. And since us talking about it, I've done a lot of thinking on this. And let me tell you what I figured out. Well, one, I've come to the conclusion that um, I don't think capitalism at its heart is the problem. Just like how I look at, and this is my own personal opinion that I'm throwing out there, but looking at our society today, I feel as though a lot of what we've been doing in America for God knows how long, it stopped being capitalism a long time ago. I believe that we live in a society of oligarchs. It's an oligarchy.
Mhm.
And the reason why I say that is because in looking at capitalism, initially there were supposed to be all of these rules and laws at play that stopped people from hoarding, stopped people from being these huge monopolies that just decimate everyone.
Mhm.
So at its heart, it was supposed to be a free enterprise. Anyone can come up, but no one was supposed to hold someone else down.
Mhm.
But at some point, it became an oligarchy, which is where we're at, where it's kings and queens in a different sense.
Mhm.
And I feel that ideology, that framework has now made its way into art. It's people who are coming in and saying, I'm successful. I'm the king of this. I'm the dominant factor. And people are trying to climb that pyramid to get to the top and then hold on to, whatever crumbs that they can hold on to. Meanwhile, you have so many artists at the bottom that are just being pushed out or held back for whatever means. It's
Mhm.
hard to get into the door to just make a penny nowadays. And it's not even just the artist, but it's also the systems in place. It's the companies in place that in their own way have made it harder for us.
Mhm.
I would say with self-publishing, when self-publishing came around, it felt at first like this godsend, right? Like, oh, yes, we don't have to rely on these huge companies. We can just do it ourselves. But then what came after that? These subsidiaries, these other companies realized that, oh, we can make money off of these people in the back end, right? So now you have the little guy who, yes, you can self-publish, but you're going to have your back broken in every which door that you walk through just to try and get your book, known to the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's become a superstructure in that of itself.
Mm-hmm.
And what we did talk about last time, in this oligarchic view, competitions, right? That was one of the things that we came in. I'm a purist with art, in many regards. I had this. I recently decided to submit my poems to some competitions, and I underwent a deep cognitive dissonance because I couldn't get past this idea that I'm submitting my soul, an expression of myself, into a competition which will be laid out and reviewed against other people who have done this same thing. And I'm laying my soul out for then a handful of people to then tell me and tell others whose art is worthy of the grand prize.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is the antithesis to what art is supposed to be. You know what I mean? But again, it's this raising others up over others, and the mentality that creates within the world of art itself.
Right. And I
So
think too, like yourself, that to build that career or to get even sometimes to enter a competition, you have had to already win. It just builds on itself. So like if you're down here and you don't get that first rung of the ladder,
yeah,
you're probably not, and it just doesn't matter. I mean, I'm sure you've read things that were highly praised, but weren't actually your thing. You didn't find it,
yeah,
I don't want to say you didn't find it great because it's so subjective, but everybody has their little own thing that they find or they appreciate in art. And so I feel like there are a few big, players that are kind of controlling, where they pick one theme. I'm more familiar with literature, and then everything has to have like a similar title. And, oh, that made money. So now we're all going to do.
right.
And it takes a real long time, then it seems, for that to cycle into something else. And everybody jumps on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
And, you know, and sometimes you do read a lot of interesting things that way, but sometimes you don't. And sometimes you find something that nobody's talking about, and you go, wow.
Yeah. How did no one see this?
Yeah.
And I think that's the funny thing about it, because in a lot of ways, going on like a poem that you're talking about that may have won first place in some contest, I'm reading it and I'm like, it's not that big of a deal to me.
Mm-hmm.
But the odd thing is, I only feel that way because of the notoriety that is behind it, right? On its own, just as its own art form from the person, I could have looked at that differently and been like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, this is amazing. But it's something to do with a pedestal that comes with certain art that then brings into play of like, I don't get it, or I agree, or whatever. But I am a purist. I think art is best when it doesn't come with any of that.
Mm-hmm.
It is just something that can be taken as it is, as a standalone. It's like looking at a person naked,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's no comparisons with anything else. I'm just looking at you for who you are as the human that you are right now. that's the merit that your art is being based off of.
Mm.
And that's I mean, there's caveats to it, but
Mhm.
I think that's art of its purest form and when it's most beautiful, which
It
is why
does.
I feel a certain way about submitting a poem,
Yeah.
right? Because if one of my poems does win first place, then are people judging it because of its merit, or are they judging it because of my soul? You know?
That's what I was just thinking. It's like if you've ever haven't had time to see a movie that everyone's talking about, and oh, this movie, this movie, this movie, and you
Yeah.
finally get to see it. By that time, it's been built up so much, it's almost the chances of you liking it
It's our
because you have such a high standard.
expectation. Yeah.
And so, in a way, for the artist, it is, it's, you know, maybe not always. You also have to then be prepared for that letdown because there are going to be people that don't feel like
Yeah.
it was the best submission or the best movie, the best whatever. So that's a good point to. So that's why if you do it from your soul, that's what you want to express, and that's the best that you can do at that time. You have to stand by that. And I mean, we can all look at older stuff we did and maybe sometimes cringe.
Yeah.
Or every once in a while I do look at something and think, I wrote that. Wow.
Right. Which,
It surprises me.
to that point, and on this whole pitting us against each other sort of thing, is I forgot who said it. I can't think of his name right now. He's a comedian who Jim Carrey did a movie about him, Man to the Moon. If you well, for you knowing out in there, in the comments, like I can't think of it. Maybe it'll come to me. But I don't know if it's a legitimate quote from him or not. But I do remember the quote being from him, which is in performing, the worst thing or not performing, but just art in general, the worst criticism that you can get from someone is no reaction at all, right? Nothing. I'd rather people hate me for what I'm doing rather than just not caring and being indifferent.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important because, again, going to this ideology of pitting us against each other in art is, what if I produce a piece of art which makes you feel like a negative emotion, right? You feel some kind of negativity towards it. The great thing is it's making you feel something. It's making you think in some way or another, but because you're feeling a negative reaction to it, more than likely you're not going to put that work of art in your top 3, even though you are feeling something. So again, that's another reason why I think it's a problem, because we do see that. We see that in music, right? Or other types of art, is you'll have artists start honing in on one type of expression because that expression seems to be the most popular. That seems to be the one that is highly regarded or liked by the general public. So then you get all these people funneling themselves because they're like, oh, that's the thing. That's what everyone's into right now.
Right.
And then, things become saturated, oversaturated.
Mm-hmm. Well, and also I think, it's because of marketing. And I think after listening to some other artists that are outside of America talk, it seems, and probably there are some other countries, but in this country, you have to fit in that box. Literature is all goes by, I can't even remember all the titles now, but young adult reader, and that's pretty mild. That's all changed, but there's steampunk and this and that, and you have to fit a category so they know how to market you.
Right.
And so it makes it really difficult if you're not interested or that you're not drawn to fit in that box.
Right.
Before we do wrap up, Wade, I just wanted to ask you one thing because I find this very exciting. we're in this period of change, and because of being able to self-publish and also find, I did a documentary in 2021 that I did over Zoom. I wouldn't have been able to do a documentary. I didn't have the camera and all the, set up for it. So there's some openings now. Some of them have come out of the pandemic, I think, where people were looking for ways to be creative and communicate. I'm wondering how you see, because I think it can change, media or publishing in some exciting ways, and maybe open the possibility for some people who didn't fit into the mainstream before. That's one aspect, but I also see there's going to be focuses in different things now because of what's happening in society. you know, uh, Sex, for one thing, just, with the Roe v. Wade overturn, how are young women going to be portrayed, and how are they going to start to think about their bodies, and they're going to be their own protectors of that now. So how's that going to change, and how's that going to reflect in movies? And that's just one example, because of course there's tons of things going on. But I'm wondering how you have you thought about that, and what do you think might come out of it?
Um, well, at the way the world is at large, as we've seen historically, during the most chaotic times, war times, segregation, um, all of it. People, again, as we began this conversation, right, in a time where our voices are being suppressed um, or being neglected. People use art to express the things that otherwise just go unseen or unheard of. I do believe that, whether we love it or hate it in the terms of abortion, there's going to be a lot of women who write their stories.
Mhm.
There's going to be lots of women, families, men, the gambit, gay couples, whoever, are going to have to write their stories in a way to communicate how this affects us, right? Because just talking about it, just people outwardly expressing their opinion on it isn't enough.
Mhm.
People can hear someone talking and just dismiss it, right? Because like we said in the beginning, words are just words at the end of the day. And it takes something deeper to really hit home, to really touch someone's soul. And so at this point, it's going to take that. It's going to take some kind of art, some kind of expression for people on either side of the viewpoint in whatever we're talking about,
Mhm.
to really wake another person up, to really dive into their mind and their heart and have them say, whoa, you know what? I've just been canceling out all this noise, but it wasn't until I saw this one piece of whatever,
Yeah.
I get it now. I see in a way that I didn't see before. Um, and that's where we're at, because with internet and the social media the way it is, these echo chambers,
Mhm.
it's going to take that piece of art, that piece of expression, to really grab someone and shake them.
Mhm.
Because just talking, just our language as it is, it's not enough anymore. And so I say it's time to rise as artists and say what we need to say from here.
Yeah, I said 2022 was going to be the year of the courageous creative, and I feel like, that our art is really being called forward, and our creativity. And just, there's a lot of power in story and a lot of power in art, and it's often overlooked, and it's not power by force. It's you know, it's a much gentler, but also just as strong, if not stronger,
Yeah.
than force sometimes. So that's a really important thing to keep in mind for all creatives and artists.
There's a film. Oh, I know the name of the character. V for Vendetta. I don't know if you've seen it. Some of you out there may know what I'm talking about. V for Vendetta.
What was the title?
V for Vendetta.
Oh yeah, okay. I know.
Okay.
It's from the book, right?
It's also a graphic novel. Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
The guy with the Guy Fawkes mask. But there's the scene in the movie, very powerful scene, where one of the main characters gets locked up and she's being tortured and all this stuff, and she's being held in like this chamber, and there's a prisoner next door to her who's like feeding her these like letters about her experience and her story, and it's very moving stuff. And she's kind of explaining how she also ended up in the prison and all that. But at the end of the scene, at the end of one of her letters before she's being taken off to be killed, she mentions this whole bit about the last little inch of ourselves, of our humanity, of what it means to be a person. Don't let them take the last little inch of ourselves. And that to me always meant that artistic voice that we have, that expression, our will to create. It's that last little inch that, I imagine, not even imagine. I mean, we hear it again historically. Jews in concentration camps, slaves on plantation farms. In the worst of the worst situations, these people fell to art to communicate with themselves. They carved messages into the walls, insignias. They sung songs together. Even though they knew that they were going to die, even though they knew that they were going to be pushed to their limits, art was the last little inch of themselves that they wouldn't let their captors take from them. They could break them down in all other ways, but that was the last straw. They wouldn't give it to them. And as long as we hold on to that last little inch, there's always hope. Always.
Yeah, it's kind of like what Viktor Frankl was saying in Man's Search for Meaning, and
Yeah.
talking about the Holocaust and how you had the people that seemed to survive it in, to some degree, I guess, were people who maintained hope under the most hopeless conditions.
Yeah. But I think it's something it's powerful in that, like in the film, we know in her letter that she dies, but even in death, knowing that you still held on to that you can go out still with your highest self, right?
I think that I would say that's because your creativity comes from that divine spark within.
Yes.
That's your connection to whatever God, the universe, whatever you prefer, and they can't,
They can't.
as long as you don't give that up. Yeah, can't take that away. So that's a good note to end. We'll like connect to our divine sparks. I want to thank you so much for being on the show, Wade. Hopefully we can have you come back at some point, because I know there's so many interesting topics under this general umbrella of creativity. I want to mention next Thursday, Laurie Marshall, just this beautiful creator. She founded Unity through creativity, and she uses art for peacekeeping. And she does this singing tree mural project, which you can look up online, and it's students doing these beautiful murals that address different issues, and it's just really, really powerful art and very beautiful. So she'll be the guest next Thursday. And so I hope everyone will join in for that. And again, Wade, I want to thank you so much. This was a great conversation. I
Um,
really enjoyed it.
can I leave you with a poem from my new book?
Yes, please do. And I was going to say, I did have the links for your books under the video. And of course, if you go to the IMDb, movie base, you can check out some of the movies you were talking about. So definitely leave us with a poem. And if there's anything else you want to add in for people to look for, let
Oh,
us know.
awesome. Absolutely. Okay. So, it is, I'm really proud of this one. It's called By a Black Man. Trying to get it to pop up here. Okay, here it is.
And this is from your book that's coming out.
The new one that's coming out.
Yeah.
So it's called By a Black Man. And it goes, a black man is weathered leather. A bull was cold to make him, and lacquer cannot cover the scar that is this truth. He is worn from being worn, broken down from being broken in. He is aged due to exposure and yet remains flexible and fine from all the above. Because a black man is weathered leather, punished by the elements passively or with intent, but cured to the point where the elements themselves absolve from the flesh. He is the skin of skin, and lacquer cannot cover the scar that is this truth. It cannot stain away the caverns carved into the hide. But with time, he matures to find leather is weathered. There is wear, but how do you wear it? Because a black man is weathered leather, and he is the fashion that endures.
Wow, that's really good, Wade.
Thank you, thank you.
Very good. And a good promotion for the book. Good promotion for the book, because just hearing that now, I will definitely be getting the new book when it comes out.
Awesome, that's what I want to hear.
And so I hope other people that listen in also take note of that. Very, very powerful, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining in. Again, feel free to leave comments. We will get to them. We'd love to hear what you think or if you have any questions. And I'm looking forward to next week with Lori Marshall. So please join in for that. And Wade, thank you so much for being our guest here on Soul Creativity.
Yes.
We will talk to you again soon.
Until next time.
Bye, everyone.